sorry, wasn't okay. Right. Okay. So, because Tom wasn't around last week, it wasn't last week. It was 2 weeks ago, wasn't it?
I haven't been here for the last 2 lectures, to be honest, have I?
No, because you were here for the first one, and then the second one you sort of had to go really because you had other things to sort out that were higher priority. So can anyone, this is a bit of a test, remember? So the first one, I think sort of introduced you to the sort of frameworks, to the assignment, and really set the scene in terms of like what marketing was about. Can you remember the last two? Anybody? I'm going to get my slides up if you can't, see if we can recap anything that we've done since then. Let's see what we can pull out on. Right. Do you remember week 2? So we've got market research. Do you remember the sorts of things we were talking about in market research? What we were talking that we could do? No,
sure it wasn't just me here, or?
No, looks like no one was around. So do you remember how were we going to get feedback on what the market was looking like? Did Tom came and did a session, didn't he? Has everyone gone vacant on that? Go on.
Yeah, no, so we said we'd look into like sort of secondary research.
Yeah.
Like using Mintal and things like that.
Yeah, so we can on the library, the CU library, there's something called LibGuides, and on that there's the databases, weren't there? And if you look at the databases, there's Mintel looks at market research on all sorts of things, and it's got things on like COVID as well, people's behaviour. And so in market research, we were saying ideally we'd do primary research where we go out and ask people, but because of the nature of this assignment, you can't really do any primary research because you need proper approval to do that. But also, I'm not necessarily convinced people know at the moment how they're going to be behaving. I think this week's going to be a test actually to see how many people are eating out again. What else can you remember anything else on the databases that? So there was Mintel, wasn't there? Consumer research. Were there any others that he spoke about? Was there Euromonitor or any? There's a couple of other ones that you can use as well that just talk about sector changes.
So there was Business Source Complete.
Yes. Yeah. Perfect. Absolutely. Okay. So we looked at databases and doing some secondary research as to what the trends might be for getting people back in the restaurants. Then in terms of buyer behaviour, can anyone remember anything? I'll scan through and just say this was all the research.
All these slides are still on Moodle, aren't they, Hannah?
Yes, everything's on Moodle and all the videos as well. So
yeah, I watched one of the videos actually. I just did check about the slides.
I think they're worth doing. A bit cringy, but I think they're just a good recap, aren't they? So we started looking at consumer psychology really, and in terms of like how people do what they do and what sort of factors impact them as well, and how that's going to impact the restaurant business as well. So we started looking at sort of factors there, and like peer groups and things like that, see how they impact your choice of behaviours, who you associate with. So like just even like the norms and values that you get through your family life. So we got and then how repetition builds messages. So in terms of jingles and things like that, how we use that for advertising, and then like how we choose to make decisions as well, in terms of like the choices we make for even like choices of brands and things and what affects that. And then can you remember anything about competitor research, what we did, what we talked about for ideas on creating a competitive advantage? So we've got some slides up, but do you remember this about these different positions that we could look to have? Because these are Porter's generic forces, aren't they? The generic strategies. Any of these?
So is that the brands below each one of those boxes what that relates to? So like cost leadership is already,
absolutely.
cost focus is Toyota.
Yeah. So it's basically what you need to do is choose your position in the market. So at the moment, we've got 3 brands operating under the restaurant group, and actually cost leadership and differential leads are mass markets. One is doing stripping out the cost and then passing it on. So actually you could almost have like your sort of McDonald's really do cost leadership. I think they don't really do anything particularly different, but they, you know, through volume, they're able to sort of service, and they're very, very efficient in the way they do it. Cost focus looks at potentially a much more narrow market, but stripping out things again that you don't need. So you've got cost leadership is mass market, cost focus is a niche market, so smaller, more focused market. Differentiation leader is something that you can charge more because you're creating a unique experience. And then differentiation focus is one where you're doing something different, but you're doing it on quite a niche market. So I'd say it really depends on where you're picking the restaurant brands, whether you're saying they're mass market or whether you're saying they're niche markets. But all you got to do, you just need to operate somewhere differently, ideally to your competitors, or if you're in the same position, just know what sets you apart. So that's where we were talking about, and we're sort of looking at loyalty as well, and just like how we can create these different advantages, whether it's through our promotions, what, you know, where we need to focus. Whether it's the way that we get our products and services out there. But obviously we're, so I think I was reading an analysis on a marketing assignment between Audi and BMW. One of them has a lot more market coverage with their dealerships, and so that actually gives them I think it was, I'm pretty sure it's BMW, have more dealerships, which gives them an advantage in terms of location just through being distributed. So it's like how do we achieve advantages based on the resources that we've got? So that's sort of quite a big picture, that is, and that all fits in the top level of the situation analysis, or the top level of the sort of mission, or the APIC was analysis. So if we're doing the marketing plan, we're looking big picture still at this stage. Right, session 3. Again, I sort of just want to bring us up to date to where we're at, because I think that's really helpful to put things into context. Right, can any of you remember what segmenting, targeting, positioning was all about?
Building your customer groups and profiling them.
Yeah, absolutely. And so when we're building our customer groups and segmenting, what sort of ways can we group people together? Can you remember any of the sort of ways in which we could profile people?
Geographic, demographic, behavioural and psychographic.
Fantastic, yes, absolutely.
What was the topic? So this
it's called segmenting, targeting and positioning. So this is session 3, the first bit. Yeah. So it's called STP, and I teach marketing exams, and I always like make a joke about it being like an STD, but it's not. It's just me being daft. So yeah, so just remember it, STP. So it's like, the way I sort of describe it, which is just a bit silly as well, is like a chocolate orange, and you've got like the chocolate orange is everybody that you could go for, the whole population. And the idea is that we need to segment it so we have the separate groupings, because even a huge organisation can't go for everybody, because you've always got a finite amount of resource. So what you want to do is you want to understand what your customers want of you as much as possible, and then you can create something really meaningful. So you segment, you group them together, and you do this through sort of understanding their personality, understanding their demographics, understanding their geographical location, and then you sort of build together a target. So these are the ones that we're going to go for. So we've spoken before about Café Rouge being a slightly older target market, potentially sort of around quite nice towns like the likes of sort of maybe Cheltenham, Leamington Spa, that sort of thing. Maybe they are sort of quite high up career wise, or sort of certainly in quite well established careers in their late 50s. But so we're starting to build this profile now, and that's our target audience. If we do that, if we create a really specific sort of idea as to who our customers are, and M&S have done this. They used to have like Mrs. M&S, and she was sort of, they'd be able to describe her age, her sort of really profile her. It means all your promotions are just totally lined up to work for them. The language, the choice of products, the positioning of the products in terms of even the store layout, every single decision. It's all your marketing decisions, your marketing mix decisions. It's just what we're coming on to today. They're all perfect for our target audience, and our positioning is where we start to look at the marketing mix. So, customer value and loyalty. Can you think of any examples of where brands deliver customer value? You think about this was 2 weeks ago, isn't it?
Like the one that Jay was talking about the other week about Nando's.
Yeah, and that was through the
Spring
through
Smart.
the app? Yeah, and through your sort of money off, wasn't it, that you sort of almost won? Was it like points and then you get some sort of discount?
Yeah.
So that was sort of a way of building loyalty really and adding value, and it means that you probably would then use Nando's as opposed to another one because you've got more incentives built in. So that was one way. So we've got, what we're trying to look at is how can we create value in a meaningful way for our different brands. Just 1 second. Right. So what we need to do with value is work out what matters to the customers. And so that, again, if we understand who the customers are, we can work out what sort of relationships are going to work for them. We also talked, did you remember about what I was telling you about, was it Pizza Express? And what their sort of product extension, what they do? Do you remember I told you?
They have the comedy nights.
Yeah, they have comedy clubs.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they tend to do those in city centres. So they have this sort of experience where you can book, yeah, and I think they get some really good comedians in as well, but they do them in like the likes of London because they've got a venue, they've got people going there for entertainment or at like a night, and certainly the beginning of an evening. So why not extend it if they've got a license for a couple of hours and have, when people aren't traditionally eating, have a time where they're then using that space in a different sort of way, because people's perceptions of Pizza Express would be for a good night out. Yeah. So just 1 second. I'm so sorry. Just one.
Sorry.
I don't know if you saw that, was my little fireman coming in. Right. Okay. So building, it would be all good. Good if I got onto an exercise where we could actually do something. I just quickly sort them out. But right. So we started on the marketing mix as well in our last session. Can you remember anything? We looked at product and pricing, and we're going to carry on with these today. When we're looking at the product, can you remember the sorts of things? Can you remember this idea of the onion? Product levels. Any of these? Do you remember how we could use this?
Does it have something to do with so changing what our beliefs are or something and put that at the core of what we're trying to deliver? It's not so much the service, it's
yeah, it's really it's sort of understanding what people are buying from you. So if it's a restaurant, is the core benefit or service actually food? So if we've got business customers, for example, at lunchtime, they could be after, do you remember we talked about like a quick express meal where you've got like a sort of a 30-minute window where you can go in and you could be guaranteed that you get a chance to eat and it's a fixed price. So the core benefit or service there would be potentially the speed, but it's also the it's trying to work out at which level, what are they actually buying? Is it, so with the restaurants, is it entertainment or is it the food? I don't think it is. I don't think people generally go to restaurants just because they're hungry. if that makes sense. I think it's more of a social experience, isn't it? But unless we get this right, it works with that marketing exchange as well. So the actual product or service needs to match like the core benefits. So actually, if they are going because, for example, the lunchtime menu, if they are going because literally they want to satisfy their hunger and the actual product or service, the food isn't nice, that's not going to work. That's really not going to work very well, and they're going to get bad reviews. So you've got to make sure what the drivers behind what people are doing and what's actually been delivered, that they all match up. And then the augmented is what they could potentially do in the future. So this is the comedy club or that sort of thing. So it's these additional factors. It's the delivery service. I'll be quite interested because I'm actually going out for dinner tonight. I'm going to Pizza Express in Coventry Belgrade because they've got outdoor eating, and I'll be interested as to how they are going to manage that, because the core benefit of for Service Me certainly isn't the food. It's a chance to socialise with a friend at somewhere that's away from the home environment. So the actual product or service, you know, how are they? Is it going to be? I know it sounds daft, but it's not just the food. Is it going to be too cold? Because actually we're going to be sat outside in the evening. How are they going to manage that? You know, the augmented products or service, have they managed to create a nice experience? Does it feel like a nice ambience? Because that's what you'd expect at a restaurant, isn't it? Is, you know, what's the service like? Do they come to our table? Do we need to order on an app? Does it feel, because I do feel sometimes in some of these restaurant experiences recently, it almost turns into a little bit of McDonald's, even when you're paying a more premium price for sort of sit down service. It feels like you're not actually getting that, if that makes sense. Do you know what I mean? It feels like it's a transaction. So I think the product levels are really good, because what they do is they get you to check in as to what I'm actually buying here. What are people really coming to us for? You know, if they're buying an Aston Martin, they're not buying, you know, it has to deliver transport from A to B, you know, the ability to transport, but actually the actual product or service, they're paying a premium price for something that's outstanding, you know, that provides a real wow factor, you know. So it's got to be so much beyond it's not just about transport, because you can get that on a bus. So it's sort of understanding these different levels and the opportunities the organisation's got. And I do think it's quite a nice assignment, because I think you've got the chance to go back to basics and either build on what they've been known for in the past, build on their heritage, a bit like we talked about with the banks, the fact that they've been around for so long, or we can create it in a really new, different sort of direction, especially I think with the younger brands like Lassighanus and Bella Italia. I think they have potentially more scope to be quite interesting. And then we talked about different pricing, didn't we? And just, you know, the different strategies we've got. What did we reckon the prices were? Where do we think their price strategy is for the restaurants?
When it, let's see, penetration pricing, roughly around there.
So penetration pricing we could use to get people back into restaurants. Okay, so if we want them to use it again, they tend to be entry level pricing. I think they're competitor based, because they seem to be similar, aren't they? I would say. And also I think there's an element, it's not on this one, it might be on a different one, geographic pricing as well. This is where you can price it in different areas. So this is the differential, because actually we could charge more for our Bella Italia food in London city centre than we could in Coventry. So yeah, we can sort of change it. So that's where we're at in terms of the marketing mix. And then today, what we're going to move on to is we're going to carry on the marketing mix. And we're going to look at place and promotion. So just want you to have a look at this. So place is about how we distribute our products and services. So obviously something like Amazon Prime, Argos decided to try and really up their game, because they wanted to rival Amazon Prime, which is quite interesting, because obviously they've not got the same stock levels, but they've certainly got a similar model in a sort of almost like a warehousing type model with all about sort of processes and systems. And so what did Argos do to sort of try and distribute, to improve their distribution? Do you know what Argos's offers are?
Did they try to do something like day service, so they can get you the products within the day?
It's within an hour.
Or was it within an hour? Oh,
It's absolutely phenomenal, yeah. And that's
What, the click and collect sort of thing?
no,
no.
actually to deliver it to your home within an hour.
Oh,
Which I think that's their the click and collect. I think is that within. They've got a promise. I think that if you go into store, that you can get it within. I don't know how many minutes, but it's meant to
I
be
think it was
really
20 minutes or something like
what,
that.
Argos?
Yeah. Honestly, because Argos, you think
I
of them
was-
almost in the 1960s, don't you? I'm gonna Argos.
I was trying to buy a second monitor yesterday
Right.
for home, and it was like everyone I wanted was saying available to collect from Sunday. It's like
Oh, that's shocking. I'm so
5
sorry.
days away, so I was like, it's weird.
Yeah,
So I
that's
wasn't sure
not
if it
good.
was something different.
Yeah, and maybe they don't. So I deliver in collection. So I've got the Argos thing up here.
I think it's on that fast track tab.
Yes.
Probably just
thank you.
say they put it down to COVID. Probably. No, I can't.
Oh,
we can't
doesn't
submit,
everyone put everything down to COVID at the moment, don't they?
basically.
Not great. Oh, they're saying same day, but it was meant to be. Yeah, it was meant to be an hour. Honestly, when they first introduced it, they got the infrastructure in place. So basically, you could be sitting down, not that anyone would, watching like songs of praise on a Sunday night. TV goes, and you could catch the end of it. You know, it was meant to be that fast. And I think in store, I think it was 10 minutes. You know, I think it was so fast, or even shorter than that. So they really, really tried to sort of bump up, you know, almost be better than Amazon, the Amazon Prime. That's what they were trying to do, because they say, you know, people are really impatient, aren't they? You know, it's almost like you order online now and you expect the doorbell to ring, don't you?
Do you
know.
remember the good old days with Argos where you would go in like the catalogue and you'd like write down the code and you give it to the front desk and then you'd wait there for like 20 minutes, half an hour. I
Yeah.
don't know if they still do that, but
And then if you're a bit naughty, you might steal one of the pens because they were really little, weren't they? And then if you like me and you're a bit sort of can't get your numbers right, you sort of end up writing it a few times to make sure you've actually got the code, because you had to write it down. It was almost like playing bingo or something, wasn't it? Yeah, I know. I just wonder how much of, you know, good old days we're ever going to have back. It's very, and I wonder if you'll graduate. I hope you get to graduate in person as well, because I tell you what, who wants to graduate virtually? I think the guy running the ceremony was in a tracksuit. You know, it just feels like there's no, I don't know, sort of formality anymore, is it? It's all, yeah. Anyway, right, okay. So we are at an interesting time now, because obviously we've got a surplus amount of demand. Yeah, we've got a surplus amount of demand. We've got limited capacity in terms of supply. But I do think certain organisations are going to really have done well in COVID. But I think the cost of servicing it is higher. Can you have a think? I'm going to give you a couple of minutes. I'm just going to switch my speaker and video off and just deal with a few situations. But we'll come back 5 minutes. I want as many different ways that we can get the products to the customer as possible. Okay, all right. I'll see you in a couple of minutes.
Bless.
Kids for you. How's my fellow ex-colleagues anyway?
oh, don't say that, mate.
What
Mate,
do you
you're still
mean?
one of the team.
Yeah.
Oh, fucking just want to know what's the crack?
Same old, ain't
Yeah,
it?
same old, to be honest, mate.
I heard there was a bit of a fucking hearing about some of this ex-manufacturing directors, let's say.
Is there?
Apparently. I don't know how much weight it carried, but it was just a rumour I heard.
Not heard anything about that. What was that all about?
With Stanton and Jamil and that. Apparently, there's Crimmins and Steck got pulled into some hearing. I don't know. I've not been there. I've just been hearing news in the grapevine, if you like.
I heard something about Jamil a little while ago, but I don't know what. If that's just come out now, I'm not sure.
Yeah. What's single line gone like? Is it working?
No, not yet.
Brilliant.
They did all the station numbers in like 10s rather than 20s, so it's all been messed up. So I don't think DBS has run down the line yet. I think that's due to go down today.
Really?
Yep.
What oh no, sorry, it's the DBX. I was
You
going down
been-
the line.
You been near Speedster at all, Kieran?
Yeah.
How's that getting on?
It's bollocks, mate. Keeps failing the testing. It's failed that electromagnetic testing, and it's fried loads of units.
What
Has
the
little-
EMC testing?
Yeah, it's not got it ain't got a roof or a windscreen anymore. It keeps failing the same test. I had to change a steering column control module yesterday. But it's clam off, center console out, instrument cluster out, and it's like half demarried to get the IP out, just to change the steering column.
Keeps you busy, mate.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's nice to actually do something at work.
What are those drop-off points called? What's the term for them? Do you like where you have the lockers?
Oh, I know what you mean. Amazon have got quite a lot of them, haven't they?
Sort of like a place that's accessible by someone every time they want to go there.
Yeah, it's
Yes.
lockers. That's just what they're called, aren't they?
They are
Lockers.
just lockers.
There's some at Aston, isn't there?
Kiosks.
Yeah, Amazon ones, isn't there?
Yeah.
Are they?
Yeah. they're right.
Okay. What ideas have we got then? Because that's definitely one of the. And what's the advantage of those sort of facilities?
It gives you more flexibility, don't they?
Yeah, it's just convenience. So yeah, we've got one in Gaydon actually. So it's obviously good. Obviously, when we're in the office and not always at home, to be there to answer the door. Yeah, you can get it delivered to your workplace then.
Yeah. And you pick it up whenever you want, don't you? And whereas with the shops, you're queuing up, aren't you? Well, not that you could even get in the shops. And like people tend to go on lunchtimes as well, don't they? So it used to be quite long queues, wasn't it? Click and collect. So they're better, aren't they? These lockers, and I imagine they're quite good COVID-wise as well, don't you? For sort of like cleanliness and wiping
It's
them
like you
down
say,
and
you haven't
things.
got a. It's a person free, isn't it? You ain't got to talk to anyone or be in
It's the
anyone's
whole way the
vicinity.
world is going, isn't it? Sort of
Seems to be.
everything's- I know. Yeah, so they've got massive advantages because it used to be click and collect was like the biggest in terms of retail. That was the way that it's sort of the most popular, even if you could do online, because people weren't as at home as much, obviously, as they are now. What other ways have we got of getting things to people? So we've got lockers.
Do you know, I genuinely discussed this with my grandparents about my assignment because I was talking about it at the same time as they were here, and they might speak to my nan about it, and she was saying that she'd love it if, you know, the traditional like market stalls, if Amazon set like a market stall up there, and that you could like get it delivered to there, they could go and pick it up like a traditional market stall, and it would appeal to the sort of the older generation, if you like, 'cause they're still like chatting to people when they're buying something. Whereas I know the rest of us millennials or whatever want to just get contactless all the time, but people want an experience when they're getting a delivery, which I thought was quite nice and something to take into consideration.
I can imagine that as well with certain towns, can't you? That there's certain more like market towns, you know, where there's a certain. If you look, like there are certain places that people retire to as well that tends to be like seaside locations. I think that could be. There
Yeah.
could be something really in that.
Well, they
because
live in Shrewsbury, so it's a very much a market town, and there's just old people everywhere, so it would really suit that market.
And it's also got a real reputation for sort of gourmet, and it's got a sort of real quality reputation to Shrewsbury has as well.
Yeah, because I mean, we order stuff for them on Amazon that gets delivered to them when they need it,
Yeah.
especially over the last like year or so. But then we bought her a tablet, and she's been able to order stuff herself, so it's been really good.
But I think that human contact, do you think it really is just a thing for older people, or do you think?
I'm not sure. I'm just going on what. I mean, I don't mind it either way. I mean, it's just ease of use, isn't it? When you can get home and you've got your delivery there. But
Yeah.
obviously, when you're retired and you've got nothing to do, especially over the last year, they've got nowhere to go because they're shielding. It's nice to have human contact of some form, just to have a conversation.
Agreed, and I think the need for socialisation used to be met at work by people. It's almost like you got home from work and you were glad to, potentially shut the door and not really have to talk to many people. But
Yeah.
I think the way things are going, not necessarily if you're in an environment where it's sort of manufacturing, you've got to, but actually for a lot of environments, their headquarters are going. They're actually selling up, and it's going to be a lot more flexi working. So I think we're sort of going to this almost seeming like we're going into one direction, which is about sort of very much about everything being automated. But I do wonder, whether there's something like that. That sounds really nice, really, really lovely idea, and sort of quite nostalgic, really, isn't it? Quite a heritage.
Yeah, it's like even down to the fact that when we were doing them like an online shop, they wanted to get it from Asda because the bloke who was ordering their stuff was really nice and they could have a conversation with him. Even little stuff like that. So
yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. Has anyone read about this store that Amazon have set up, like the supermarket?
Yeah, it's that autonomous supermarket, ain't it, where you just put it in the basket?
Just walk out.
Yeah.
We went real life shopping yesterday. I went with the children, and we queued for, I think it must have been nearly an hour to check out. And I was telling them about the Amazon one, and they were going, gosh, this was like, it was just so long. It's so slick in terms of what it's like. And I think, I'm not sure if you have to scan anything when you go in, but you certainly, as soon as you walk out, it's just, there's no checkout or anything.
But to do with your Amazon account, so you sign into your Amazon account on the trolley, and then do that way.
I watched this YouTuber, and she went to that shop, like that Amazon shop, and she said that you just you have a barcode on your phone, and then you just scan that, and then it links to your Amazon account.
Okay.
And then it will pay like that.
Yeah.
And
this, sorry.
Hannah, can I just quickly, because I've got to go to a meeting in 3 minutes. I do need, firstly, I need to understand this new business's stance on how I'm going to complete the course. Once I understand that, am I right to just copy you into emails and stuff with the CEO?
Absolutely. And I think for now it's the same with Tamsin, that you're paid. This one is paid for by Aston Martin anyway, but it's the time, isn't it? That's the key.
It's more the time, I think the money's not. It's down to the money. I don't mind paying last year if I need to, but it's just I just want to understand the business's stance so I can understand how to word what my email.
Me in, and any way I can support you, let me know. Okay.
Because there's 2 sessions left, isn't there, for this one? There's one session on the 28th and the Viva as well, isn't there?
Yeah, and also the next session that I've booked one-to-ones with you as well, so that if you are a bit stuck, we can make sure you've got everything you need. Okay.
I've not even made a decent. I've literally read the assignment. That's about it. So I need to get on with
it. If we need an extension as well, we can sort that out. So.
Okay. All right. Well,
it'll be all right. Okay. I'll see you in a little bit, hopefully.
Yeah, I'll back at 11, hopefully.
Okay. Fantastic.
All right. See you later, guys.
Brilliant. So what else have we got then in terms of place and distribution?
Mom, can I get my football out of the car? Mummy, I'm allowed to get my football out of the car.
Any others? There's car keys. Any more? We got.
I don't know if anyone's heard about the farmhouse doing that eating drive-through thing.
Yeah, I went to that.
Did you?
Yeah.
Yeah, I went to that as well. That was really good.
Did you? Yeah. Apparently, it's because it's been like a massive hit, hasn't it? Making loads from it.
They must have made so much money from that, honestly.
Yeah. So it was a drive-through restaurant. So you park up outside the restaurant and in their car park, and they'll bring food to you. Bring food to the car. I don't know how it'd work with this business, but it seems to have done really well. I think it blew up on social media.
Was it the brand? So what was it? A supermarket brand? Well, who was it? Who did it?
So they're like a restaurant in Coventry.
What's it called?
It's called the Farmhouse. They do like kind of pub grub, but then also Indian food as well.
Yes, I know. Is it near Go Outdoors?
Yeah. Right next to it.
Yes, I know what you mean.
Yeah.
So what do they do? They brought it out to you like a sort of.
Yeah, so you literally park up and then you go onto their website and then somebody, obviously that's where all the menu is, then someone will come to your door, you order, you pay for it, and then within sort of 10-15 minutes they come to your door with kind of takeaway style boxes, but it's a bit more sort of luxury than like McDonald's, but you know,
Yeah.
it's still really good.
That
I
is
asked,
really
I asked
quite
the geese, and he said they were doing 50 cars an hour, and our bill was 50 quid, so they were making a decent chunk.
Wow.
Yeah.
I really think, right, okay, this is a question that I've got later on, so I'm going to answer it already. I think place or distribution is the key part where there's options for innovation. I think products are pretty much, there'll always be some innovation, you'll have a new iPhone, do you know what I mean? There'll be sort of incremental innovation, but I think the way we get in what we buy has the opportunity to be done really differently, and I think that's where it can be, and real add value and loyalty. That's phenomenal, isn't it? I bet they've done better, and I bet they're swept up on their competition. People were bored, weren't they, in terms of like how you eat and things, so that's so different and good. So other ways we've got that is amazing. So you've got vending machines, and I know that sounds really obvious, but have you ever seen the ones in like at airports, or the ones in huge train stations where you've got a wall of products and you can scan it and then it's delivered to you when you get home?
No, yeah.
I haven't seen that.
No, they've got them in like Asian countries. They do it, and they've got it. I
Have
think
you
in
seen the
Heathrow.
ones that you get in Japan that make you a fresh pizza?
No. Oh wow,
So
that's
maybe
amazing.
let's go to Japan.
That sounds
Have you
quite cool, actually.
Yeah. This is what I mean. I think there's sorts of ways that what you need is somewhere where there's a big footfall and there's a need, almost like you can do it for a premium price then, can't you? Because I used to live in a number of years ago in Switzerland, and they had in Zurich like one of the most massive vending machines I've ever seen, because the shop opening hours were quite limited. So you actually, you'd want a bag. It sounds daft. You'd buy a bag of sugar or a loaf from a vending machine, but at least you could buy it from somewhere. But vending machines are used business to business as well. So they're almost like locker facilities, and so they're not sort of vending machines in our traditional way, but almost like if a part goes in say an Amazon fulfillment center, whoever supplies those parts, there'd be a sort of almost a key code or something where you'd open it up and they'd know that one item had gone. So it's a way, it's called a vending machine, but it's not sort of in the way of it dropping like a packet of crisps, but it's where big parts suppliers are using it on site to maintain the stock control.
When I was in Shanghai a couple of years ago, there was a vending machines outside of restaurants, so you could either go into the restaurant and eat, or you could get seafood in a vending machine. And people, loads of people are using it. It's disgusting.
So we've got some options there. So I think there is some innovation potentially on the restaurant type business. That there are options. I know your assignment is very much focused on the sort of eating in experience, but I think we've really got to make the most of, like, now they're open again, what can we do to generate as much income as possible, and what are people open to doing as well? So another thing that is relevant to your assignment is franchising in terms of place and distribution. Do any of you know how franchises work?
Don't they buy into it? So I think one-stop franchise, if there's a shop already there, then they can renovate the shop and they'll do something with the supply chain, but they take so much profit each month.
Yeah, so you license the right to use a brand. So you use the restaurant, so you use their branding, you have to get your supply from them, you have to follow their menus, you have to charge as they charge, it has to feel identical. So I don't know what proportion of McDonald's restaurants are franchised, but quite a high proportion of franchise and quite a few are owned by McDonald's. I think you can tell the difference because a franchise restaurant, you pay for the ketchup. Sorry.
I think when we did this in business and secondary, there's only one in Coventry that's not franchised. The rest of them are franchised. It's the one.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I think it's by Primark. I don't know what that street's called.
I know what you mean. Yeah. Is that one not franchised?
Yeah, that's the only non-franchised one in Coventry.
And like with a franchise, you're obviously paying so you're paying for your premises, then you're paying for a license to use it, then you have to buy everything from them. So you're really tied in. You can't do anything innovative because obviously you've got to stick to the brand because that's why you're buying it. So why are franchises quite a popular way for people to start their own business?
A lot of the kind of marketing is already done, isn't it? If you've got a really strong brand, you then don't need to, if you're a fresh startup, there's a lot you need to do to penetrate the market. Whereas if you've got that brand already, you're pretty much there.
Day one, they're going to be going in buying from you. And actually, the risk of the number of business startups that fail within the first year compared to the number of franchise business startups, franchises are like so much more likely to succeed. But I sort of think it's not, you're not a proper business. Oh, that sounds really mean, does it? But it's just because you don't have the creative element in it, do you? If you're doing a franchise, but the recipe's there, the formula works, the brand is known, and that's actually, it's probably the promotion is the biggest part of it. And actually, I think so Subway is another franchise that's hugely popular. And again, if you've got a franchise, if you've got a Subway opening up on a street, guarantee immediately you're going to have business for it. Whereas if you did your own little restaurant or cafe, sort of little takeaway business, people might walk past it for 6 months before they actually go in and use it. So I think the 3 restaurants that you're looking at, I'm going to ask Krishna, can you remember, because I think the ones abroad were franchised, is that right?
I think that's what it said on their site, yeah.
Yeah, because you found it, didn't you, a few weeks ago? I remember you looking at it, and I remember thinking then, so that's a way that they're expanding. So how does franchising change, or how will franchising, who are they selling to when they're franchising? So the restaurant business, who do they need to appeal to?
The franchisee.
Yeah, which is going to be someone with some money, someone who's got aspirations of starting their own business. So actually what they want to see is quite different to what the customer wants to see. They'll want to know, if you were thinking of starting a franchise, what sort of things would persuade you that it was a good option?
You'd want to know like the numbers and stuff as well, like how much you can benefit, because if someone has got a bit of money behind them, they could be in 2 minds whether to start a franchise or start their own business afresh. So they need to really weigh out the pros and cons of each.
Absolutely. So you'd want to know what the profit margins were like, what the what the sort of average order might be. You'd want to understand, your costings as well. If you're restricted in terms of where you're buying in supplies from, what the annual franchise license is. So it's this sort of thing. So it's I'll tell you what it is. It's a more rational decision than it is for business to consumer. And so business to consumer, it's more about the experience, it's about value for money, it's about having a nice evening. It's less committed, isn't it? Business to business, the franchise is a huge commitment, isn't it? Because once you're in, what sort of training are you going to get? What support are you going to get? Do they help you with marketing in the first year? So just have a, when you're looking at these, because one way of them expanding their turnover and growing their business is to expand the number of franchises that they've got. Okay. Any other, so in terms of place, how do you think it's relevant to the restaurant business, the one that you're looking at? How important is it to consumers' purchase decisions?
I think having like accessible locations and setting up in accessible locations. I think with the, like you were saying earlier about eating in like outdoor areas and things like that, especially now, it's like important. And if some people might not be comfortable going inside, so then like do your business, like does that location have that facility?
Yes, and if it doesn't, do any of you know, because you're all sort of around Coventry, aren't you? So I sort of forget. Do you know the Ahmed Palace in Nuneaton Way? It's on the A444 near the George Eliot Hospital.
No.
Anyone been there? It's really good. And I rang there to try and get somewhere to eat tonight, and they were like, no, they said we've got our outdoor dining area, we're building it at the moment. And I said, how about, I said, can I go along? Can I come along? And can I bring deck chairs? And they were like, No, it's a building site. You can't sit outside in a deck chair. It's like, oh, drat. You know, they're so narrow-minded. I've got like the whole camping kit. I had to come along with my friend. But anyway, but I just think I think you're absolutely right. I think in distribution terms, you know, we've got a changeable feast at the moment, haven't we? We've got this. Hopefully, the outdoor eating will be a temporary thing in some ways, because obviously we've got the reintroduction in May of eating indoors, but it might not happen. You know, we might, you know, so this is a real time where flexibility is key. Do you think the vending, you know, when you were talking about the vending machines for food, how do they work? So was the food hot and fresh, or how did it work?
Yeah, it was hot and fresh, but a lot of it is raw because they eat a lot of raw seafood in China. It was pretty rank. Like even down to like fish eyes and things like that, you could order from the. It was just disgusting.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah, not for me.
No. Do you think there's any application here to? Right. What I'm thinking, okay, is so if we think about, so for example, with Nando's, with Pizza Express, they've got brands that they've managed to get into supermarkets, haven't they? I mean, Pizza Express, you can actually buy Pizza Express pizzas, can't you? In supermarkets, you can buy the Caesar salad dressing, you can buy all sorts of things. Nando's, they've certainly got, what have they got? They've got like sauces and things that you can buy.
Yeah. Like the
Do you think-
marinades.
Yeah, has Bella Italia got any of that stuff?
Don't
Or
think so.
I saw, like when I was researching that, Bella Italia partner with Tesco, so then their products are in like Tesco stores.
Are they?
But
And
that was a while ago, so I don't know if it's like still a thing.
Yeah, I'm just wondering on this how much we've got in terms of scope to get a bit bigger. Because have you heard of the concept of like pop-up shops before now, where retail outlets aren't used, so you've got like you can hire it for a week or something, and then that's sort of set up a temporary shop.
Yeah, they do that at Vista Village.
Yeah. I'm just wondering whether, you know, they should, like, in their attempt to really get out there, to sort of almost saturate the market a little bit, and sort of trial. I'm just basically just coming up with ideas in terms of how could they really capitalise on the place to get as much coverage as possible.
There's places like Digbeth Dining Club as well, isn't there? Where they do like pop-up shops.
Oh, they're great.
Is it?
Yeah.
Where? So how does that work?
So it's like street food, really. But I think some of the bigger brands have got in there when they first started. I think there was a Nando's part to it.
Oh, was there?
Chicken and chips, yeah. Sure there
nice.
was.
And is
But
it a
then
particular area then that you go to?
Yeah, it's in Digbeth.
So what's it called? The dining area?
Digbeth Dining Club.
Dining club.
Rob, you know the because I went to that Open Arms in Warwick.
I don't know that, mate. No.
Okay, I think it's like part of the Digbeth Dining Club like group, but they basically have like different locations. They had one at Coventry Cathedral as well.
Yeah, I think there's one at Warwick Castle the other day. Yeah.
Yeah. I went to one last year, the Warwick Castle one, and it's basically like a whole bunch of like as I said, like kind of stalls almost of like food stands, and then there's like all kind of tables and stuff to like seat 6, and they're all like socially distanced.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it's really good.
Yeah, I think this time, I think there is a real scope, don't you, for sort of almost like not necessarily your traditional. I think if businesses are on the ball at the moment, just like we heard about with the farmhouse, there's a good opportunity here, isn't there? But the businesses need to be a bit more agile, possibly, than they used to be, and look at how they can service and what they can make. Because I also think, if you think about like the resource that you need for a restaurant, or what you need for that sort of service, there's a lot of retail units that are becoming vacant, aren't there, at the moment, because so many businesses are going under. So it might not be a long-term strategy, but there could be. And there's massive pent-up demand, isn't there, for people to go out and do stuff again. So I think, you know, there's some really interesting opportunities here. So do feel free, as I said before, you know, if you've got any of these ideas that you've seen used for other areas, you can sort of transfer it and see how it could be tweaked. That would be amazing to do that. So yeah, so I think with the place, it's about like it's about being accessible, but it's also about sort of being seen in the right way as well, actually. So something, so it's sort of almost associated with the right brands around it, the right sort of social experience that it's coming together as well. And you know, is it that they could partner even with other brands where it's even more of an experience, like a full sort of, I don't know if there's an outdoor theatre or something around it as well that you could sort of start to, because that's where you add the real customer value there as well. Okay, so next thing I wanted to look at was about promotion. Would you like, yeah, are you okay to carry on with it?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
let's carry on. Right, okay. So with promotion, we think about it as like, my association with promotion is about advertising. But actually, it's not just about that. It's about things like our Nando's app. It's about our marketing and the brands talking to us. So marketing communications are, in terms of their personalisation, this is just a phenomenal trend, and it's going to grow and grow and grow. So our television advertising will become more customised to us. Even now, Sky will know if you subscribe to them. Somewhere you'll have put what your family sort of occupations are, and based on that, they will put tailored advertising on. So SAP, the software solution, they actually pay quite a lot of money to show adverts in managing directors' houses, and they've got like the time profile when the children should have gone to bed, that sort of thing. And it's almost like, you know, Google's sort of where it's like the pay per click almost, isn't it? Where you've got a budget and the number of times that it's seen, then it disappears. So when you've got a sponsored ad coming up, do you know what I mean? When you type something in, if you were typing in, I don't know, holiday to, I don't know, Turkish holiday or something, then the first couple of ones that come up are sponsored. Do you know what I'm on about? And then if you click on them, what it does is they'll have a budget, and that budget will go down. They might be paying 55p for each time you click. That makes sense.
Yeah.
The same's true with television now. So actually, television advertising. The other thing that they're doing with, they actually did, you know, the apprenticeship that you're on, they did apprenticeship, COF Uni were doing apprenticeships adverts on television, because they said the cost is just reduced for actually placing them. Why do you think television advertising is getting cheaper and cheaper?
I don't know about anyone else, but I personally don't really watch TV that much anymore. I don't think anyone does really.
That's it. And certainly not adverts. So if you are watching something, you are likely to be. Do you stream stuff then? So do you watch it on devices instead?
Yeah. It's like Netflix or.
Yeah. And there's no advertising, is there, on Netflix? Or is there?
No.
So there's just no scope to get there, is there? Do you watch any of the terrestrial channels? Do you watch like the iPlayer or anything?
Sometimes.
Yeah, but obviously they
I
haven't got
only
any.
really watch Channel 4.
What was that? Sorry.
I only really watch Channel 4. I don't really like any of the rest of the channels.
Yeah, so 4 on demand.
Yeah.
And they do have advertising, don't they? I'm just thinking, because I watch quite a lot of Channel 4.
They play the same ones over and over again, though.
I know. Yeah, it just. Yeah.
Yeah. So like with all 4 and ITV Hub, they do have adverts, but if you pay like sort of similar to Netflix, a monthly fee, then you don't have to have the adverts. And
yeah.
it's like a premium.
Yeah. To try and get rid of them. So I'm just thinking, in terms of like our options to reach people, in terms of our marketing communications, think about your restaurant brand. How would you do it? What do you think the best ways of communicating with potential customers are?
Social media, if I have to be honest.
Okay, and which of the social media channels would you use?
Instagram, and I'm only saying that because there's a company that does it really, really well in Worcester called Hanbao.
And is that a food company or
They
what
do
type of business?
burgers in bao buns. It's incredible.
Okay.
And their Instagram and the way they pitch it is incredible, and they're always really busy.
Wow. Okay. Do they do any price promotions, or is it literally just like
I think
excitement about the
they
product?
post pictures of the burgers quite a lot, and then I think there's also a lot of people that go in to visit there because it looks quite trendy.
And so in terms of communication models, they'd be using, it's like a model where you use other people then promote it for you. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
So it's not you just doing it directly. And we'll come on to that because that's the key in terms of effective communications. A really boring brand that does that. Have you heard of Hillary's, the blind company?
Yeah.
They've started to use, I noticed they're using a lot of social media influencers that are connected with home interiors to talk about their brands now. And their advertising, it's not coming directly from them. They're trying to use third parties because they feel it's more credible. And it was some time ago, but I remember doing some research for a course, it was like 10 plus years ago, but it said that 80% of people do not believe what they read in adverts. So actually, if you've got people that you do believe communicate messages, they're likely to be received a lot better. I suppose the other thing with the social media as well is it's just so interactive, so up to date, isn't it? That you're having a dialogue. It's not just pushing messages out there. So I think, yeah, direct marketing to our, and also if it was Worcester based, as you're saying in on Instagram, we could as well be fairly localized with our reach as well, couldn't we? So we could do campaigns out there. Is there anything else that you do in addition to? So we've got Instagram. Would you use any of the other channels as well?
I think you know how we said that each of the restaurants within the casual dining group are kind of targeting different sort of ages. So I think obviously for some of the younger ages, like yeah, Instagram and TikTok's like gone quite big now. You always see ads on there. And then I don't know about anyone else, but I rarely use Facebook now, and I feel like a lot of the sort of older generation do. So that
I was
might
just
be
going to
a
say
more
that's like the older,
appropriate.
that's Cafe Rouge, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
Facebook. I think Cafe Rouge is Facebook, and I still think it's pushing things through people's doors. Because my experience of doing that, not actually me pushing them, but when I've done marketing campaigns and we've done some doorstep deliveries, if whatever we're doing is local, it does get quite a good response. It's all about timing, and it's about, you know, if it's in a bundle of things or if it's just on its own. But if you were introducing, we've got I live on in Rugby on an estate with a Brewers Fair pub, and they always, the whole estate will always get their new menu when it's launched and sort of money off offers. And I just think it's a very inexpensive way of getting the local audience, isn't it? So I still think that that has some weight, but places, a lot of brands, it's purely online now, isn't it? 'Cause it's more measurable, I think, as well. How would you encourage word of mouth promotion for people to spread the word? What could you do there?
You could offer a deal like where if somebody brings a friend along, you could get a certain amount off your order.
Yeah, I think so. Someone, yeah, that sounds good.
I think
go on.
Sorry, I think it goes back to that thing we talked about a couple of weeks ago, like creating brand fanatics. And then once you have those, then you're marketing it for free because they'll do all the talking about your brand.
Yeah, and I mean, the social media courses that I've been on, one of them was saying, you know, for personal training businesses, they just should be busy all the time because they should be asking people that are undergoing their personal training programs to be promoting it in exchange for a price discount potentially. But if they do that, that will get their full order book. So I think if you've got people that are actively, and it's got to be something they're sort of interested in and showing, but I think because it's sort of a social thing where people are posting photos of what they're doing all the time or checking in, it should naturally happen, shouldn't it? And you could have, Sky used to do an introductory offer where if you started using it, you introduced a friend, you get a money off discount and they do, or so it's sort of like everyone wins. So I think with the rewarding, it's just got to be something that works for everyone, really, to sort of share the love, really, in terms of spreading the word about the brand. So we've got advertising is where we pay and we control it. So it's something that could go in a local paper, or so it could be on social media, but it's paid for, and because of that, it doesn't get altered. So it's got somebody who's very clearly paying for it. It could be billboard advertising. Sales promotion is about discounting generally, or it's about doing something like if you come in at lunchtime, you'll get a free dessert, or there's something there that's a real incentive for people to book now. PR is, Jay, this is your area, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Go on, explain then what PR is.
Yeah. Okay. So it's basically about like building good relationships with like publications or people with like kind of large platforms that can then enable with helping to the kind of storytelling of the brand. So obviously we use it a lot at Aston because we don't have like really large marketing budgets, and obviously so we use PR to then help promote the business.
And have you got a number of journalists that you've got good, or is it more the journalists, or is it the publications that you've got relationships with?
Yeah, a mixture of both. Primarily at the actual journalists. Obviously we try to work with a lot of freelance journalists as well to try and maximise the coverage as much as possible.
Yeah, because I was just going to say they sell stories as much as they can, don't they, to as many places as possible.
But obviously, yeah, we do work really closely with the large publications, so like Top Gear, Evo, things like that. So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do we speak to a lot of YouTubers now? Because obviously that's the way most people watch sort of reviews on cars now.
Yeah, we do. So a big one is obviously Carwell was just like skyrocketed recently. So we've worked with them recently. Yeah, any kind of car launches, we get YouTubers involved as well now. As you said, Rob, it's a really big platform. It's not all about print and people reading online reviews. They want to watch it as well. So quite often the publications actually have their own YouTube channels as well. So like Autocar, Top Gear, obviously they have got the like written articles, things like that, the more traditional approach. But then they have also got video reviews and stuff as well. And just obviously the views that you get on there are massive. And it appeals to so many. So yeah.
And I think the thing with the public relations is it's seen as really credible because it's about the relationships that you've got. It's more authentic in terms of what they're saying.
Yeah.
Whereas if it's advertised, it should be stated that it's an advertisement.
Yeah.
So then you've got the whole, or it's advertorial, which is like almost seen as editorial, but it's not. It's just an advert. And then
That's
you've got
why
that sort
relationship building is so important in PR because if you kind of go wrong one way, then you're going to be portrayed in a bad way. So I mean, Aston, we've obviously messed up a few times with some of our products, but people are forgiven because we kind of have such a good relationship with them. So they don't slam us as hard as they probably should sometimes.
Yeah, because you've got that investment in the relationship, haven't you?
Yeah.
Personal selling. Sorry.
Just on that point, we literally had a customer who rang up the CEO, so Tobias, and said, I'll buy a car, but these are the quality issues which I've seen that are going about, and I want you to check for all these issues. And we had to, because we work in the customer audit team, we had to get that car in and check for all those particular issues. The CEO had to look around it, everything, because what they'd seen on YouTube and what they'd seen, with people's car reviews and stuff like that, they had concerns around the quality of the vehicle. So it's so effective.
Yeah, and it's almost what it used to be, the communications. It's the source of the communications that would have been Aston Martin and what you'd decided to say, and it was all very highly controlled. But actually, public relations and the social media engagement, it's not that anymore. So actually, marketing, the people who used to go into marketing, you'd like it because you could almost like craft something, you'd publish it, and then you'd wait for the orders to trickle in. Whereas now it's a conversation that's so fast paced and you've got to be so reactive and so responsive. And your resource isn't necessarily about money, it's about time and people's skill in responding to things.
That's the problem. The bad reviews are viewed a lot more than the good reviews. So it's
and shared, aren't they?
Yeah.
Absolutely, which is where, as you say, if you've got this sort of good relationship that's a long-term one, you're giving them access to things quite early on, so they've got a reason, an investment in you, really.
The good news, he was delighted with it in the end. So.
Oh, that's good. And I bet he would have made that quite publicly known. I imagine that was another PR opportunity.
Hopefully.
Yeah, good. Personal selling would tend to be something that you get for higher end products. So this is something where potentially you've got your sales showrooms and you've got sort of, real experts. And then direct marketing is where you're like contacting people directly. So it might be previous customers. It could be through on social media channels as well, but it's very, very targeted. And you've got like specific lists of people with particular interests that you're going to be talking to. So we've spoken about some of these. Print is now tending to be online as well. So that's not just on its own. Broadcast is potentially dying. The only exception is if you've got a live show or a football match, which is where it's just saturated with different it's saturated with advertisers such as betting websites, isn't it, for the football matches and things. But if you want to get a premium slot where you want people to watch it, you need something like Britain's Got Talent's live final, and that's the sort of thing where you're going to get big footfall, or like the equivalent footfall. And a brand that did use that, it's about 5 years ago now, was Cravendale. Have you heard of Cravendale, the dairy products, the milk?
Yeah.
They did a really, really sort of very, very well thought through, very funny, very catchy advert. Oh, was it? I'm trying to think what it was. It was basically, it was a dairy brand, and they were one that weren't seen as cool until they did that advert, and it just changed their business, the perception. So it gives you massive exposure, and actually some companies even advertise the fact they advertise, if that makes sense. So like you'll see vans and it says as seen on, ITV or something. You're just like, well, you've paid for that, so it's not, it doesn't necessarily give you credibility. But there is a feeling that if you've made it, if you're on the telly, which I don't. Yeah.
Which was the brand that kept doing adverts that kept getting banned on purpose?
Paddy Power.
Paddy Power, was it? Because that stood out to me. That sounds really effective.
Yeah, and that works because if you go back, when we're talking about segmentation, targeting and positioning, their target audience are sort of generally male with a quirky sense of humour and a bit sort of, they're going for their sort of inner child, really, aren't they? They're sort of slightly naughty. And I mean, even their slogan is for sort of Paddy Power is for something and the Irish or something. Sorry, it's just so they're very quirky in the way they do it. Have you ever seen any interesting stuff that's outdoors, like any sort of like gimmicks almost?
There was one recently in London which I did see, and they were looking for a digital marketer, and it was like it was on display in London. And it was like a big image where somebody literally just drawn that we need a digital marketer, and it like in really crappy writing, and it was just a really crap advert.
Can you try and find it? I'm going to be 1 second. I'll come back to you, but try and find it and share it. Yeah, I'll be 1 second. Emily, darling, let's go now.
And if somebody else can see that, please feel free. If anyone saw it.
I can try. It was on. I saw it on LinkedIn, I think.
Yeah, I think I did. Yeah.
Did you manage to find it?
No, I'm trying to get. I think I saw it on LinkedIn, like Tamsin just said. I'm trying to find it.
Just had a look, and all I can find is Day in the Life of Digital Marketers videos.
There's some amazing stunts that people do sometimes to try and create viral awareness. Have you ever have you heard of Ultima Bras? It's a lady called Michelle Moan, and she set it up. And what she did was she'd run out of money for any marketing, so she got would-be actors I think it was launching like Harvey Nicks or something like that. She got them to dress up as cosmetic surgeons and protest about these bras because people wouldn't need them if they breast enhancements or whatever, if they were wearing these bras. So she got all these people like dressed up as sort of doctors saying, you know, we want these bras banned, and then just got the media involved and got so much publicity from doing that. So you can do some really quirky stuff. It just needs a bit of imagination, really.
You always get those cars, don't you, that are wrapped with like businesses on and stuff. Because there's one in Stratford for like a jeweller's. It's like a gold Suzuki Jimny. It's got like the company name on it, and you can't ignore it. It's very gold.
Yeah, and it's sort of, that's what I mean by this sort of stuff. It's just basically stuff that's meant to create a bit of a stir, really. I mean, when they first launched, what was it, the Wonder Bras as well, they were having like accidents because they got like these big posters with like hello boys and these ladies in the bras. It's just trying to create stuff that's different. But I think now the shock impact is much harder to get, isn't it? Because we're used to seeing so much. Okay, let's go back.
I think nowadays people are very oversensitive as well over a lot of things, so you can't really be as sort of cheeky as you once probably could.
I know.
Hello?
You have to be very careful, and there's a lot back in. Okay. Yes, you were right about, you were talking about oversensitivity. Yeah, the scope for having complaints is just it's very high. Why would so I think I can imagine a huge poster if you'd got restaurants nearby and sort of almost so people are aware that the restaurant's there. I don't know what else, or you could even do like sampling of food or things like that you could, we're talking about market stores as well. We just need to be creative, really, to try and get people into the restaurants, don't we? In store I don't think is really relevant unless you're actually selling products and doing a sort of promotion. If Bella Italia have got products in Tesco's, they could get sampling and sort of showing people what they want, and trying to encourage trial. Digital we've talked about quite a bit, and this seems to be the way where marketing spend is going digital. And then I mean, it's really difficult to sort of say now because cinema hasn't been used very much, obviously because the cinemas have been shut. But cinema's been surprisingly successful, even with so many sort of different television options. Any ideas why, like what sort of brands would use cinema advertising? Where could it be really good?
It's usually other films, isn't it, that they try to advertise upcoming films.
Yeah, so do upcoming films, and then if you ever get to the cinema early, what adverts have you seen? Can you remember any?
Volkswagen advert before.
What was that? Sorry.
A Volkswagen advert.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I'm not sure why, because it's not got anything to do with the cinema, but I remember seeing a Volkswagen advert.
Okay. They do
snacks.
Go on.
Stuff.
Say snacks.
Yeah, snacks. Is my mic off?
Yeah, in the cinema themselves. Yeah, they're trying to get you to go out and buy snacks. So I think there's a mix in the cinema. So you've got like the ones that use it as a proper cinematic experience, like the Volvo. Really weirdly, I saw, because I used to go to the cinema like every week. I used to see 1 week ITV advertised, which I thought was really odd in the cinema. And the week after, I'm sure it's BBC, were advertising as well. So it was sort of getting people who wanted quality, I suppose, quality content, because obviously you pair it with a film that you're going to. But one thing I wanted to say on this is there are local advertising opportunities. So actually, when I've been to the showcase in Coventry, there have been local garages that have advertised, or small local shops with very sort of basic adverts. But you bear in mind, you just it's almost like a PowerPoint slide or something. So you're just increasing awareness of what's local. But again, might work for local restaurants if it's in the vicinity. Because depending on the film time, you could even do that at a film that's sort of early afternoon. So if people are still sticking around and haven't gone anywhere to eat, that could be quite effective. So there are, do you know, with all this, it's just thinking it through. And although there's a massive push to digital, when I've looked at advertising spend, it isn't purely digital. At the most, it tends to be, it used to be half, and then they'd do a blend with other things as well, because they'd feel like it was just too much otherwise to do it all one way. But I mean, it could have gone much higher now because, yeah, it may have shifted in further. So I was saying to you that advertising is changing and promotions, in the sense of it being more tailored. Have you been to Birmingham's Grand Central? I think there's an eye there. There's some sort of advert that detects with some sort of thing that detects whether you're male or female and will change the advert according to your gender. Ever heard about anything like this, where they're sort of looking now, they can detect who's walking past and actually different advertising will appear? Something that's been going on for a little while, actually. I suppose this, the thing they have to be a little bit careful of is just making sure it's no anonymous data is used. But if it's what advertisers are trying to do is match as closely as possible with what you are, what you like, what your behaviours are, which is why obviously you've got so many cookies on websites tracking what you're doing to try and customize it appropriately. And do you get this where you've been on a website and you keep on getting promotions to try and sort of secure the sale? Seems. Do any of you get it because when your phones are also I know it sounds like a sort of a conspiracy theory, but this idea of your phone being a listening device as well. Have you experienced this where you then get
it's like we'll be talking about something and then all of a sudden I'll see something like an Instagram ad or something. And it does kind of freak the crap out of me sometimes, because you just think, what the hell's going on?
So what's happened that's allowed that to happen? So do you know why it's happening? What phone have you got?
I've got an iPhone. Is it just because you've got that on your privacy settings that you're...
Yeah, so down to your settings, they have got something that allows them to act and use that data.
Yeah.
And then obviously people have got more and more listening devices around their houses as well. So you sort of combine all that together and you've got a really sort of this idea of big data. You've got a really rich basis of information for them to tailor adverts, haven't you?
Yeah.
How does it put you off though, or is it because you're saying it sort of freaks you out a bit? Does it put you off the brand itself, or not really?
Not really, but it's just a bit weird, isn't it?
I think all of this is really strange because you've got your GDPR, so companies have to be really careful with how they're storing and using your data, and yet it feels like anything that you say can get listened to and then fed right back to you. So it feels like it's almost contradictory, doesn't it? Where do you know what I mean? There's more protection about you, and then there's less as well. Okay. So just in terms of sort of really thinking about communications and about promotions, there are so many different options to communicate with you today. A lot of the ambient ones are things like even on if you go to fill your car up, what sort of things are advertised on the knobs for the petrol? Can any of you remember seeing any? I've seen driving jobs advertised on there. I think there have been product adverts I've seen on there as well. When you're going to take money out at the cash point, do you ever see adverts on that? You ever noticed any adverts if you go to a supermarket and take some cash out? Or do you not? What I'm trying to say here is there are so many opportunities to advertise to you and we don't notice them because we are so switched off. We will only notice what we want to see when we want to see it, which is actually why the listening devices probably work quite well because you actually are talking about it. Direct response ones are ones where people want to act now, don't they? So actually what you want to do is provide some stimulus, and actually if it is quite an easy decision to make, book now, donate now, you don't want this conversation going on. We want to keep it as fast as possible. So actually, if you fancy doing something, share it, ask your friend, and book your table now, because it's in limited demand, so in limited supply. So you want to really try and get people to act on things. If it's a highly involved decision, so if it's something like buying a car where you might need to do quite a bit of more research first, what you want to do, you expect to do with your communications is just trigger that initial conversation, but you're not expecting to get a sale right away. But I think with restaurants, I think you could get to the point where you're getting people to book now or to order now if you're at the right time. Let's have a little break, and then we'll come back to some communication theory, which builds on promotions. Before we do, has anyone got any questions? Just checking you're all still here, because everyone went really quiet. Checking I'm still here.
I'm still here.
Oh, that's good. Fantastic. Right, okay. Well, in that case, I'll see you at 11 if that's okay, and we'll carry on with, I'll stop the recording, we'll carry on at 11 with communications.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you.